Before you go out and buy Zoom's new P4next, there's some things you need to know about. It doesn't matter if you're considering upgrading from the first gen P4 or just looking for a new device for your podcast or live stream. There are some things that might be deal breakers for you. First, let's start with how Zoom improved upon the first gen P4. For me, the single biggest thing that kept me from recommending the first gen P4 was that it was limited to what is more or less typically reserved for cheaper USB mics and audio interfaces. And that's 16-bit 44.1 kilohertz recording. 24-bit and up to 48K has been standard in decent recorders and audio interfaces for like 20 years now. Zoom fixed that kind of cutting of corners by giving us 24-48K recording in the P4next. This makes it easier to set your gain high enough that you're not fighting the noise floor and you have enough headroom before you have to worry about clipping. And by upgrading the converters, Zoom has slightly improved the noise of the P4 in terms of the EIN, bringing it up to negative 125 dBu. While this isn't quite as good as what you get with devices like the Focusrite Vocasters and their 2i2, the Roadcasters, Motu's M series, and the Mackie DLZs, it's good enough to power an SM7B without noticeable noise or the need for an inline booster like a Fethead or a Cloud Lifter. And speaking of the SM7B, the preamps in the P4next do have more than enough clean gain to power even the SM7B, and that's even with my super quiet voice. So there's no worries there. As I'm editing this, I realized that I misspoke when I said that the P4next had really clean or enough clean gain to power an SM7B. I did a couple of tests with the P4next and the SM7B and compared it to the SM7B into my Cranbourne Audio EC1 preamp. And the EC1, the recordings came out about 5 dB quieter in terms of noise. So the P4next has enough gain for the P4 or for the SM7B, but you're probably going to need to do some denoising because the P4next does have a higher noise floor. Here's a quick comparison of two clips to give you an idea of the difference. Here's a quick test of the P4next using a Shure SM7B. Right now, the gain is set to about 3 o'clock. I just wanted to show that this mic has more than enough gain and to give you an idea of what the noise floor would be using the preamps in the P4. And again, this is set to about 3 o'clock. Okay, here I am testing the SM7B with my Cranbourne Audio EC1 preamp into the Apollo Audio X8. Just using this as a comparison for the noise level of the mic versus preamp versus what we're getting with the Zoom P4next. Next, Zoom's added some processing to the P4next. So you get tone, which adds EQ and de-essing, a compressor, and AI noise reduction. This sounds good on paper, but in typical Zoom fashion, they make compromises to hit their price point. So this processing, it's all global. You can toggle tone, comp, and noise reduction on and off individually, but they're either on or off. They will be applied to all of the inputs. And even worse, you have no controls over the settings. You can't control how much gets applied. Like I said, it's basically an all or nothing, on and off type thing. Here's a quick recording testing the tone and comp features. Here I am doing another quick test with the Zoom P4next. This is again the Document Audio DA87 into it. Right now I have no processing on. Next, I will turn on the tone. Here I am with the tone toggled on. How does this sound compared to the raw audio? I will again turn toggle off so you can hear. This is without any processing. The tone is turned off. How does this sound? Next, I will turn the tone back on. Okay, so tone is on now. I will now turn on the compressor. The compressor is now on, so we can hear how this sounds along with the tone. Does this make my voice sound better? Does it make it sound worse? Or does it sound professional, polished, and clean like marketing likes to say? I will now turn off the tone. So we are now hearing my voice with only compression on it. How does this sound compared to having tone and compression on? And finally, I will toggle off the compressor. We are now back to hearing my raw, unprocessed voice. I'm sorry, but this is what it sounds like. How does this sound compared to having all of the processing turned on the Zoom P4? Let me know in the comments. Now let's move on to more Zoom P4 stuff. To my ears, the tone just sounds bad. Running tone and comp together should probably be a crime against humanity. This is why presets are a terrible idea. There's no one-size-fits-all that works in all circumstances. The compressor on its own, it's not terrible, but it's not as good as what I can get using a decent plugin or even what you get with the Rodecaster or a Mackie DLZ. But moving on, the AI noise reduction, it works by analyzing the noise floor of your recording space for a couple of seconds. Then, in theory, it will remove noise and sounds that aren't included in that noise profile. I also should mention that I had a viewer ask if I noticed any latency when I have the noise reduction turned on, and I didn't. But it's something to keep in mind because this could be an issue. Some people are more sensitive to latency, and if you're not sure what that means, what latency means, latency is how long it takes for you to basically hear what you say in your headphones. If that latency becomes too high, what you hear in your headphones won't quite be in time with what you hear in your head, and it can start feeling a little uncomfortable. If that latency increases even more, it can become downright distracting because it starts to sound delayed. Here's a quick audio clip of me testing the noise reduction. Here I am doing a quick test with the Zoom P4next. I'm recording with a condenser mic, the Document Audio DA87SE. I have turned on a bathroom fan to test out the AI noise reduction, which is currently turned on. I'm seeing how well it works. I will now be turning off the AI noise reduction. Does this sound any better? Does this sound worse? Let me know. To my ears, I don't really hear any difference, which makes me wonder if there's something wrong with my unit, or if this is just a gimmick that Zoom threw in there, but doesn't really do a whole lot. But overall, the processing, to my ears, seems to be thrown in as a means to market the device as new and improved, but don't really add any inherent value. Tone and noise reduction seem to be pretty useless, and the compressor is just okay. If you're going to use any of the processing, it would be the compressor. I would recommend leaving the others off. The other main improvement is the form factor. While it's slightly wider than the first gen, it's also shorter. And personally, I prefer the color scheme and form factor here over the first gen, which I always thought was not the most pleasing to look at. Some of the changes aren't quite as obvious. You get slightly worse battery performance. Using lithium-ion batteries, you get 8.5 hours with phantom power compared to 9 hours with the first gen. And you can run regular alkaline, and I seem to recall there being a third battery type that you can use with these. But phantom power is now global instead of something you can toggle on individually per track like you could on the first gen. This shouldn't be much of an issue for most people, but be aware of it if you use a mix of condensers and dynamic mics. Even though dynamic mics tend to not be damaged by phantom power, I'd like to see this be a per track option. Next, you get a smaller screen, but they did add voice guidance to make this device more accessible to those who are struggling with the smaller screen. You also lose the soundpad volume knob. You can now use memory cards up to 2 terabytes, which is up from 512 gigabytes. And another big deal for those who are using this for recording to a computer is that it works as a true audio interface, meaning you get 12 inputs and 2 outputs that your computer will see. The first gen operated as a 2 input, 2 output interface, which meant you had to record internally to get individual tracks, which basically all podcasters should want. And let me pause things here for just a second to ask that if you're finding this video helpful, that you give it a like, and if this video helped you decide to get the P4next, please support the channel by using the links in the description. These links help support the channel so I can keep making more videos like this. But overall, the P4next is a better all-around device compared to the first gen P4. The biggest loss is the larger screen, but it's not like the screen on the first gen was terribly huge. The screen is small, and the text can be tougher to read for people who don't have great vision. What you get in return is a device with better conversion and better compatibility if you're working with video. And as is the case with Zoom, it's always a very give and take thing when products are built to a price point. It feels like Zoom felt pressure to add processing to the P4next, but to keep the price down, they boiled everything down to a preset. So they checked the boxes of adding processing and AI, but they feel kind of thrown in from my perspective. I have to wonder what got sacrificed to add these lackluster features. I'm happy with the form factor of the new one. It fits easily in a backpack or a suitcase, making it a good fit for a compact remote recording kit. This is one of the best uses for the P4next. If you travel with it, I would consider making sure you take care of it. The housing is made of plastic, and it's a plastic which may or may not tolerate a lot of abuse and impact. The other primary use will be for those who have a 3 or 4 person show and need something budget friendly. But be aware that you do get what you pay for with Zoom. You'll get something that does one thing really well, but strips away some of those quality of life things you get at higher price points. For instance, most people are unlikely to hear any difference in the raw, unprocessed audio recorded in the P4 compared to other audio interfaces and podcast mixers that cost more. In the Roadcasters and the Mackie DLZs, you get more options for processing each input. You get more control over each one. You get 1/4-inch headphone ports and bigger screens. The larger bodies of these devices allow for more buttons, knobs, and pads, which tend to mean less menu diving. All of this equates to a better user experience. And just keep that in mind, that you're not paying more for better raw audio quality. You're paying more for control, more features, and really just a better overall experience. If you're recording and handling all of your processing during post, the P4next will get the job done and you won't really be missing much. If you're doing live streams or you want to do less mixing during post, this is where things like the Rodecaster and Mackie DLZ start to shine. It's up to you to decide if those other podcast mixers are worth the price for your needs. But overall, I would say the Zoom P4next is best suited for podcasters who need a portable setup or looking for a budget-friendly device for their 3 to 4 person show. If you're doing a smaller show with 1 or 2 people, or where everyone is remote, I would look at the Focusrite Vocasters. Those are really great deals for podcasters, and they're insanely cheap most of the time. Right now, it's Black Friday 2025, and Vocasters are $40 for one channel and $70 for the for the Vocaster 2. Those are great deals for audio interfaces. If you're live streaming or want to handle more of the mixing when you record, definitely look at the Rodecaster and Mackie DLZ series devices. And if you're still not sure what to get, I have a playlist over here that has a ton of videos about podcast equipment and some live streams where we discuss equipment and our thoughts. I hope you found this video helpful. Drop any questions and comments you have below. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.